Hey guys, this is Dr. Jansen, and today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions when they have unlike denominators. So let's get started. All right, so let's look here at question number 1, and we see we have 4/3 plus 1/2. And so unlike the problems that we saw before when they had the same denominator, which again is just a fancy word for number on the bottom of our fraction, here we see we have two numbers on the bottom of our fraction that are not the same. So they have dissimilar denominators here. So we cannot do anything at this point. We can only add and subtract fractions that have the same denominator. So we have to ask ourselves, what can we do to get these fractions to have the same denominator? We have to force them to have the same denominator. We have to find a way to make that happen. The easiest way that I would recommend doing that is to actually just multiply both of the denominators by each other. There are other methods of doing that. You can find least common multiple, other things, but I recommend the easiest way of doing it is to just simply multiply both of the denominators by each other and then just simplify at the end. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to multiply this denominator 3 by 2, and if we multiply the denominator by 2, whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do the top. So that means we also have to multiply our numerator 4 by 2 as well, and we're going to rewrite that fraction immediately, this whole fraction right here, because we do not want to get confused at all. So 4 times 2 gives us 8 as our new numerator, and 3 times 2 gives us 6 as our new denominator. And so then we're going to do the same thing to the right side. So we're going to multiply 2 times 3, and again, whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do the top. So again, all I did here was I multiplied this fraction here, 4/3, by the denominator that was over here, which was 2. And then I multiplied this fraction here, 1/2, by the denominator that was here, which was 3. As you can see when I multiplied by 3 for both these. So now I'm going to rewrite this fraction here. 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. And here's the reason that I chose multiplying each of those opposite fractions by each other's denominators. And that was because I knew it was going to force both of those denominators to be 6 on the bottom. It was going to force both of those denominators to match. And now I can simply just add like I do when they have the same denominator. So using that same process, I can add straight across. 8 plus 3 gives me 11. And we always keep our denominator the same, so it just stays 6. Now I have to take this improper fraction, because remember, when we have a larger number on top than the bottom, that's an improper fraction, and we need to convert that into a mixed number. So I ask myself, how many times does 6 go into 11? The answer to that is 1, because 6 times 2 would be 12, and 12, that's too big to go into 11, so it only goes in there once. Then I have to figure out how many is left over. So 6 times 1 is 6. And then I just subtract that from 11. And 11 minus 6 gives us 5. And so I'm left with 5. And so my answer is 1 and 5 over 6. Because again, 6 went into 11 once. I was left with 5 left over. And 6 was my old denominator. So that's where I got that 6 from. And so my answer is 1 and 5, 6. Again, if you have a little trouble thinking about how to do that in your head, you can punch 11 divided by 6 in your calculator. You'd see that it went in once. And I went over in my like denominators video how you can solve the rest of that, converting that to a mixed number using your calculator as well. So now let's move on to number 2. Here I have 4 minus 5 sixths. Here I just have one big 4, and that might look a little intimidating to some of you, but I promise it's not. Anytime we have a whole number like that, it's really the same thing as that whole number over 1. So we can always rewrite that as a fraction anytime. And now we're going to solve this the same as we did our problem up above when we had two fractions that just had unlike denominators. So again, we're going to solve this the same way. How do I get these unlike denominators to match? I am just going to multiply both of these by each other. So I'm going to multiply this whole fraction by 6 to get these to match. I'm going to multiply this whole fraction by 1 to get these to match, and that's it. So it's just that simple. So I need to multiply 1 times 6. And if I multiply the bottom by 1, I need to multiply the top by 6. And I'm going to rewrite it immediately so I don't get confused. So 4 times 6 is 24. Over 1 times 6 is 6. Carry down my subtraction sign. And multiplying both of these by 1, we know that anytime we multiply something by 1, it's actually just the exact same thing as what it already is. So I'm actually going to just rewrite this as 5, 6. And now that these have the same denominator, we can go ahead and keep working this problem. So just like we did in our previous lesson, we can just go ahead and move left to right. 24 minus 5 is 21. And with the denominators, we're just going to keep them the same. So 6 and 6 just stays what it is. And we are left with 21 over 6. So now we need to convert this improper fraction to a mixed number because this 21 on top is larger than the 6 on the bottom. So we need to figure out how many times 6 goes into 21. 6 times 1 would just be 6. 6 times 2, 12. 6 times 3, 18. 6 times 4, 24. Ooh, that's too big. 24 does not fit into 21. So we're going to go with 6 times 3, which is equal to 18. So that means that 3 here is going to be our big number. And then figuring out what's going to be left over 6, again, we're just going to take this 18 and subtract it from 21. So 21 minus 18 is going to give us what's left over. 21 minus 18 is 3. So we're left with 3 over 6. Again, we got this 3 from right here, if you're trying to figure that out. Now we have to ask ourselves our final question, is our fraction in simplest form? Is this 3/6 in simplest form? It is not, because there's still a number that 3 and 6 are both divisible by, and that is 3. If we divide the top by 3, we also have to divide the bottom by 3. And we do nothing with our large whole number 3. That just stays what it is. But 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. That 1/2 cannot be simplified any further. So now we are finished, and our answer is 3 1/2. Great job.